Hi, everyone. My name is Robin Stafford, and I work with UVA clubs. We have 110 clubs around the world. I encourage you to get involved with a club in your area. UVA Clubs also has virtual programming, and tonight I'm so happy with behind the scenes to introduce Olivia Cleary, an alumna of the architecture school. Hi, Olivia.
Hi, so great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're happy to have you. She is going to walk us through her process of taking an idea with roots in architecture and founding the Clearly Collective. And I lifted this straight from her website, where she describes her business as a meld of wearable art, architecture, and narrative, reaching communities, institutions, brands, events, and industries that value gifting and storytelling. Feel free to ask any questions tonight in the chat, and Olivia will get to as many as possible. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight we're going to start. Olivia has a big presence on social media, always posting, building her business, and we're looking forward to hearing your story. We're going to start with a quick reel on Instagram that she posted recently that shows a bit of her story, and then we'll be back.
It's been 6 months since I quit corporate, where during the week I'd be picking out paint colors, and on weekends I'd be wrapping luxury sports cars. So here's what it looks like to bet on yourself. Since then, I've worked with the PGA, the US Olympics, NFL, Ritz-Carlton, Tao Group, Hotel Del, L'Oreal, and so many more. Doing what? Well, first, I think there's a gap in the market between brands and fashion. The collaborations I see involve taking a brand logo and then placing it on a high-quality luxury product. But it doesn't mean anything. Especially for our quiet luxury lovers, logos are going out. So how can we represent the essence of a brand through art and design? Well, that's exactly what I do. I take the values, aesthetic, history, and branding of a corporate brand, hospitality group, or social club, and I translate this into a unique sub-brand textile that then can be put across any surface. I've been asked to wrap helicopters, yachts, most commonly silk scarves, and the end result is always something incredibly meaningful with a story to tell. For example, at Hotel Del, we're abstracting the facade and putting it around the edge of the scarf, but we're also adding really important details like the dragon tree, where there's this iconic photo of Marilyn Monroe and everyone loves to pose in front of it. Or the crown from the Crown Room that was designed by the man who wrote The Wizard of Oz, actually at that hotel. These are just small elements that are incredibly important to the storytelling of this hotel that keep people coming back. It's not a logo put on a t-shirt. It's the experience and meaning behind it. So looking ahead after 6 months of quitting my job, my goal is to redefine the gifting industry, bring back high quality gifts, say goodbye to logos, and focus on creating beautiful branded art inspired by values, history, and aesthetic that makes any surface into a beautiful storytelling piece. Probably silk scarves, but who knows? Here's to 2025.
Can I go ahead? Is it my turn? Oh, I think you're on mute. But thank you
Yes,
so
take it
much.
away. Thank you.
Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you all for being here. It's such a pleasure, and I love UVA, so I'm so excited to be talking to you all. I'm going to share my screen. Today, I am going to walk you guys a little bit through like what my journey has been, but I do want to emphasize like I'm still very much in the startup phase. I think it's a fun and interesting story to share, but I also hope you can learn a little bit from it as well. So as we're going, if you guys have questions, just feel free to put them in the chat and hopefully I'll answer them in the presentation, but if not, then I'll just run through them at the end. So, can you see the screen here? Does this look good? Okay, cool. All right. So, the way that I'll go through this today is I'll talk a little bit about my journey, where I was, where I am today, and then really what the future of the Clearly Collective is going to be. So where I was, Clearly Collective, I'd say really started out as an art project. And it started actually during architecture school, doing doodles in the side of my notebook. And I started to evolve this type of style. I graduated architecture school in 2020. COVID. I didn't know what to do. No one was hiring. I worked at a restaurant actually for a little bit. And then I finally got a job in New York City, my dream city. And I worked at a traditional architecture firm. Now, as I was working there, I always had a bit of like a side project, and I was always making art for friends because I wanted to create pieces that they wanted to have in their homes and beautify them. And so this was the style that I was iterating on, and I was always working on something on the side that was creative, that fed that creative side of me. And as I went along, I just thought about, okay, well, I was doing canvases that could go on the wall. What else could I put these designs on? So I tried jumpsuits and I tried shirts and I tried dresses, and I would hand draw all of these things. And they're all architecture inspired, coming from school, of course. I even tried to put them on t-shirts. And the idea was, okay, if I can make one design, I can print them on a t-shirt, and then more of my friends can have them. And then I even had the idea of putting it onto wallpaper and textiles. And it actually got to a point where I went to the head of my design firm at that time and I said, I have this really great idea. I really want to make architectural textiles. I want to put it on pillows and all these things. And in the kindest way, they said, okay, like, you actually have you have to have a formed idea. You can't just have this abstract idea. So you should go figure out everything you can about supply chain, logistics, how do you even print on things, and then come back to us and maybe we'll talk about it. And funny enough, that's exactly what I did. And I realized actually it's kind of easy to figure out how to print things. And I ended up just doing it myself and starting this instead of giving it to them. So this was the first prototype I ever made, which ultimately was a scarf, because I felt like the t-shirt didn't really work out. It didn't really lend itself well to the art. And the scarf is a beautiful piece that people appreciate as art to begin with, but also can be worn. And so I took the same design that I had been iterating, I sketched it out, and I made my first scarf. Now, the way that I designed this first scarf is I put it on my Instagram story, and I asked my friends, oh, like, what color do you like the most? And literally through Venmo requests, I would Venmo request my friends, and then they would pay me like $30 for a polyester hand sewn scarf. That was done by my roommates, who were also my little helpers. And so this is like the OG Clearly Collective headquarters in my apartment. I would cut these polyester scarves, and my roommates would help me sew them or iron the edges, and then I would bring it to the sewing machine and sew them myself. They were terribly made, but this is kind of the process of bringing it from an idea to an actual product. And that was a very, very fun experience within itself. So then, I'm making these scarves, and they're really this abstract design. And I had the idea of, well, how can I make this even more meaningful for my friends? Why don't I make it UVA themed? And this was the first scarf that I designed that was really location specific or community specific. And the idea was, okay, the rotunda is this iconic architectural piece, and it is timeless. I mean, every single generation comes back to UVA and can associate the rotunda, the pavilions, the lawn with the UVA experience. And so I put that on a scarf and I abstracted it. And the idea was actually, I was thinking about going back for reunion, which is this year. What would I wear that's like more elevated than the t-shirt with a logo? And the idea was, okay, well, what's the meaning behind the logo? What's the UVA experience, and how can I put that onto a design? And that is where the UVA scarf was born. And so then, after thinking about this more, put it onto Instagram, it ended up going viral. And I realized the magic equation, which is really the basis of the entire Clearly Collective, which is if you can take iconic, timeless architecture and then use storytelling over logos, so no logos, combine that with a luxury item, that's really the essence of what I was trying to build. So I wanted to pause here so you could see what the Tundi scarf looks like. So Patrick, I'll let you take it from here and then we'll come right back.
If you went to UVA and you like Hermes, I'm giving away this custom silk scarf inspired by the campus architecture, called Grounds by Actual Wahoos. Now to win, tag 2 friends in the comments below who you think would like this, repost this to your story, and stay tuned for tomorrow, where we'll be giving away another collegiate silk scarf.
Baby, let's stay together, loving you
Perfect. Yeah. And so I think that's also a really great example of how I've built the brand, which is on social media. And so doing these videos also really help people to understand how to even use the product itself. So if you guys want to see how to style a scarf, it's on Instagram. So I'll come back to the presentation. Can you see this? Okay, cool. So we have the idea, we have the magic equation. It's okay, so you take the timeless architecture, you take the storytelling, we're not doing logos and we're really putting it on a luxury item. And suddenly we have this really meaningful product, which is the base of, the brand that I'm trying to build. So that is what started the whole collegiate line. And since then, I've created, over a dozen scarves. And people always ask me, okay, well, why do you choose these schools? And what I always get back to is, okay, well, what's meaningful to people? And what that is like, people come back to school for reasons of nostalgia, pride, community. People love UVA because of this amazing community that it has. I mean, one of the reasons why I went to UVA was because there were so many people, my parents' age, that loved it, and they kept coming back and they told me how amazing it is. So it really, it's such a generational thing, and they're so proud, and I wanted to be part of that. And so when I think about the next school that I want to choose, it's always, okay, well, who has the most pride? And typically that's indicated by the largest alumni database, how many people are involved and always coming back. And so the next round of schools that I'm doing are SEC. And we do have a few of these as in my collection as well. But this is what I'm going to be focusing on for the fall, which is these just huge, gung-ho, schools that really have a lot of pride. So, we talk about the magic equation, iconic timeless architecture, storytelling over logos, a luxury item. I was thinking, well, what other communities can I apply this equation to? And that is where the destinations came in. And so here are some of the destinations I have. Nantucket was one of the first ones I did. Fisher's Island was actually the first one I did. It's where I grew up. And it has the same idea of using timeless architecture that different generations have experienced in the same way, and then putting that experience on a silk scarf, as opposed to, for example, a Nantucket sweatshirt. So same idea where you have a belonging to a certain place and you can let people know you're part of that place, but here it's really speaking to the experience rather than those letters itself. So our collection's a little measly right now, but that's okay, because I'll show you at the end, we're actually expanding it a little bit. But the question is why do I choose these destinations? And so from a marketing perspective and design perspective, even, it's partially nostalgia and love. And so what is meaningful to people are places where people have fallen in love. So it's, for example, Santorini, a lot of people get married there, or people get married in Nantucket. And then the other part about destinations are, what is the allure of being part of some exclusive destination? If you're from the New England area or New York, everyone thinks the Hamptons are really cool. And so how can you show pride of being part of this really this exclusive community? And so that's how I end up choosing my destinations like that. And I'll show you a little bit more at the end. And so then, okay, we come back to the magic equation. We've done collegiate. That's the first community that I'm trying to represent. Then we're doing the communities of different destinations. And I was thinking, okay, well, what other communities can I branch out into and use this idea of representing them not through logos, but through, what the experience they give is. And then I brought that structure and brought it over to corporations. And so the idea was, okay, instead of, the architecture of a campus and the traditions of a campus, it's, well, what's the corporate history? And a lot of these really well-established companies have amazing history, and even some of the new ones do too, and traditions, and there's things that people are proud of. And so that's really where the corporate gifting side of all of this started. And an example of that is I did a collab with McLaren, and I'll show you that.
Did you know McLaren has a custom silk scarf, and it looks like this? My name's Liv, I'm 27 years old, and I am actually an architect by training, but now I run a customized silk scarf company. Let me tell you about this project with McLaren. At the time, I was working a full-time job in architecture, and I had this Instagram account up and running, and they found me, and they asked if I could create a custom design for Car Week. This is one of the largest car shows in the US, and the idea was we were going to take the local racetrack, the Laguna Seca, where all of the McLaren owners will race on track day, and translate this into a beautiful scarf design. When I'm thinking about the scarf, and we have to get the blue and the orange in there to represent the McLaren colors, the vinyl scarf had an outer frame of white and an inner frame of blue, and then weaving through it organically was the actual shape of this racetrack. So I was working with this incredible woman, her name is Savannah. She was actually the youngest female McLaren general manager. She said, well, what if we wrap a car in this? I'd never wrapped a car before in my life. It was an amazing experience. I talked to so many interesting people, and I remember on Monday, I was back at my desk and I'd just been driving around McLaren's all weekend. If you're a brand and this looks like something you'd like to do, we just opened applications for 2025. Tag yourself below and we'll be in touch.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so that was a really fun project, and I'll share with you guys a little bit more about that in just a sec. All right, how's this? Sharing? Good. Okay, so just to recap, we have the idea of taking iconic corporate history, storytelling over logos and a luxury item, and we come up with this other branch of the corporate gifting. And typically, I feel like what I had been seeing in the past was you just kind of take a corporate logo and you put it on a vest. And I just felt like we could do a little bit more with that, with this kind of framework of re-representing a corporation. So here's what the final car looks like. And I ended up taking the scarf, and I took 3 scarves and I made it into a dress so that we could match the car. And that was a fun time. But to get in a little bit more about the why of why this is working, well, first, people are really proud of the communities they're part of. Whether they're part of a community like McLaren and they own those cars and they want to be associated with the brand, or you're working for a company like Fidelity, or like some big bank or something where you've given your life to this place, and people are very, very proud. And this is really what I want to celebrate through the art that I create, inspired by the brand. But more specifically, I think that there is a really interesting intersection of corporate America and fashion, and it's totally missing. I mean, you wouldn't think that a bank could have a fashion line, and I couldn't show you guys today, but I'm actually like working with a really large bank on developing a fashion line. And it's you wouldn't think that this exists, but it does. And it's because people are really wanting to humanize corporate brands through art and through design and through creative storytelling. And this is just one of the many ways to do it. And I think, who is, like, for example, like, who is JP Morgan? Who are these people anymore? They're people of the past, and they become these big corporations. And I think, like, through art and storytelling, we can humanize them, and these companies can become more meaningful to people through the stories that I try to show in my designs. So, in summary, this is where I'm at now. I have the collegiate line, I have the destination line, and then I have this luxury corporate gifting line. And what I wanted to share with you guys today was a little bit on the marketing side of what was working. And these are like little tidbits of information of my story that I always want to share as just like things that really worked in my journey. The first thing was, I marketed to people's emotions and familiarity. And what I really mean by that is, like, I'm not reworking the wheel of creating like an insanely new product. I am marketing to people who understand UVA, and that's people understand the feeling of being on grounds, and they understand the rotunda. This is not new. This is just a slight abstraction of an existing thing. So that's the first thing I learned that works really well. The next thing that I thought that people always ask me about is like, did I get investors? Did anything, like, how did I do this? Everything was completely bootstrapped. And the most that I paid for starting this out was just an Adobe subscription, which I think like monthly is maybe like $30, $40. And I started out making a mock-up of the scarf design that you guys saw earlier. And I created a, one example of what it could look like. And then my friends would pay for that. And then I would invest that money into the product and then give it to them. So they saw the product ahead of time, but it was all pre-order, and they saw what it would look like all ahead of time. And so in that way, I was able to fund the entire company from the start from like just an Adobe subscription. And more on this pre-sale and drop model from a marketing perspective, but also design perspective, has been really interesting for me. And so when I'm designing a new scarf, let's just say like a Charlottesville specific location scarf, the marketing starts from the beginning, and the marketing goes hand in hand with the design process, and it's incredibly helpful for me. So I always start with putting on my story or in an email or something where I say, okay, so this is the Charlottesville scarf. Like, what should I put on it? And you would not believe the amount of responses I get. This is one example of what that looks like. I'll get these DMs from people and they'll say, okay, you know, this is what you should put on it. This is why it means the most. And I'll get enough of those. Once I see repeats of the same element, I'll say, okay, that's something that's going on the scarf. I'll try to find architecture, traditions, stories, start to draw those out. And then I bring people along that journey. So, you know, the next phase is, okay, what color do you like the most? And I get that feedback. And it's kind of like this back and forth feedback of me learning from the people that are part of these communities what mean the most to them, so I can accurately translate it. But all the time it is also marketing it. So it really helps. It's like this joint journey that ends up actually like really helping me because I'm getting accurate information. At the end of the day, like, I will be the one making the design choices. So I'll finalize that design, I'll create a sample, I'll reveal that, and then I'll show people how to use it. So I'm really bringing people on the entire journey from, you know, okay, what do I put on it? To like, okay, now we've made it. This is how you're going to wear it in this location. If it's by the beach, okay, we're going to wear it as a sarong. If we're like, you know, wearing as a headscarf, there's so many different ways that are, you know, specific to whatever area they might be wearing it at. And I'll always, you know, through that entire process, have the pre-order open. So if people, you know, are like, okay, I don't even care what it looks like, but I really want the Martha's Vineyard scarf, they can pre-order that and not have to, you know, go back. And so that's part of my marketing strategy. The other part of my strategy that I often get asked a lot is like, how do you bootstrap a luxury company? And the best way to do that is beginning with non-monetary exchanges. And the way I got started was with this McLaren project, which I made no money off of, because the way that the exchange was, they flew my sister and I out to California to document and talk and help show off this car in exchange for me doing the car wrap for free. And the value in that was we were able to demonstrate how our product can be shown in a brand activation and the world. And for me personally, it opened up my world, my eyes to the world of luxury and like where art has a place. So this got us on the map. And then after that, we were able to see like what our value was. And then other brands did. And then we were able to actually make this into like a business structure where we could, you know, profit from it. And another thing that has been really interesting and honestly somewhat controversial is the idea of building in public. And so when I was at the Darden incubator over the summer, they would ask us to do these weekly updates, and they were called stakeholder updates. And they said, okay, we want you to give a win, a loss, and an ask. And this was all internal. So this was with other founders and professors in the iLab. But I decided, okay, well, what if I, you know, gave this to everybody? Like, what would it be like if I could engage my followers even further? And so I remember on the right now, I'm currently dealing with a 3PL issue, which is a third party logistics issue of basically getting items shipped from A to B. And I talked about it and I said, okay, here's what I'm dealing with. Here's what's happening. And the amount of support that I got from that was incredible. I've gotten connected with some insanely niche, but incredibly helpful people through this method of just being completely transparent in my process. And it kind of helps to humanize the brand, which is the goal. I mean, it really is just me for the most part. And then lastly, this is how I got all of my clients. And all you have to do, all I had to do was I had to make it easy to say yes. And I wanted to give an example of something I just did last week. So what I'll do is I'll create like a mock video, which is, okay, what would it look like if, for example, F1 Monaco had a custom silk scarf? And I walk people through the process of, okay, so here's Monaco's architecture, here's the race course. How can we put this together to make something really, really beautiful? And this is why it would mean something, because, okay, you're not going to be wearing an F1 t-shirt to a really, like, you know, the Monte Carlo casino. Like, we want something elevated, but we also want it to be attached to the event. And, you know, what do you know? A few days later, Coda Official, who is the host of the circuit of the Formula One in the US, reached out. And so, you know, it's not exactly what I was looking for. It's pretty good, but the reason why they said this was because I basically laid out what I could do for them. And in this way, this is how I've gotten tons of clients. And I mean, even when I didn't have that many followers, it was just kind of an easy yes. The last thing I'll leave you guys with is Instagram is an amazing way to market. And all of these brands that you see on the page came in through DMs, through me creating these mock videos and them saying, hey, could you do something for us? And so there's a lot of value in Instagram and putting yourself out there in that way. And so the last phase of this is where I am now. I wanted to show you guys this video of me packaging for the holidays. And this is the reason why I'm getting a 3PL. All right, thanks, Patrick. That was a crazy holiday season. And I remember my roommate, we were in the process of moving out of my New York apartment and my roommate had just moved. And so we had this entire room empty, thank God, because I don't know where we would have put all the packages. And so her empty room ended up becoming the packaging headquarters. And I got all these interns from NYU to help me package day and night. It was crazy. So that being said, that is kind of part of what the next phase of Clearly Collective is, which is operational expansion. So the idea is there's a few things that we're kind of keeping in mind. 3PL is going to be really important because they're going to store everything for us and then they get everything from A to B. So if you order something online, this gets to you in about 2 days, as opposed to me packaging it myself and bringing it to the post office and them being overwhelmed by the amount of orders. So that's something that we're working on. The other thing that we're working on is, as we all know, there's been a lot of tariffs that have been imposed, and that's definitely impacting us. So we're thinking, okay, like, do we want to bring things back from overseas and bring things to the US, find some operations there who can print silk? And then another part that's really exciting is I'm actually moving to Italy. And the reason why I'm moving to Italy is to really expand my business partnerships. So when we do collabs, specifically with hotels and groups out there, because the architecture in Europe is just, there's so much more history to work with, and it lends itself really well to the storytelling I'm looking to do with the corporate like brand partnerships. And my favorite part, I'm hiring my sister, who's right there, as my head of operations, and I'm really excited about this because she is incredibly organized and I'm kind of the creative one. She's always been the very logical one. And so we work really well together. And so she's going to be really heading the operational side of this, really helping us grow and scale while I get all the creative and marketing stuff done. And we'll be doing that in the backdrop of Italy. Next, that I'm going to be doing next is, we're going to be really working on the hospitality collab development. We just did an amazing collab down in Mexico with the Four Seasons Resort. We just did the Hotel Del in San Diego, and we're doing some amazing wineries in Napa. And then the next thing is, in order to define myself from a regular corporate gifting company, I think that there's a lot of value in the marketing storytelling of the gift itself. And so I don't want it to stop once the gift is in hand. So how can we, make this more of a marketing agency where we can take your gift and elevate it through that storytelling? And that's another thing we're working on. And then here, I'm going to show you guys a little sneak peek of the destination line development. So it's divided into two parts. One, we have the Euro summer line, which is going to be Saint-Tropez, Mallorca, Santorini, Lake Como, Amalfi. And then here's some details there and there, lots of architecture, lots of research went into this with the help of everybody on Instagram giving us feedback on, what is important, what is iconic. And then we're also doing a destination line development that's more like Northeast focused. And these are just drafts. We're still ironing it out, but it's going to have Newport, the Hamptons, Watch Hill, and Martha's Vineyard. Here are some of those details there. And then lastly, we're not in stores yet. So this is another goal of ours as we work towards ironing out our 3PL so we can ship to stores. And then, my goal for Clearly Collective is I want to be able to tell the story of various brands and create art that can really be on any surface. And the art and the storytelling will then like make that surface more meaningful. And there was a certain hotel group that asked me to wrap a helicopter, which I'm very excited about. So stay tuned. And then I'm also going to be getting into fashion a little bit. We're going to be doing some collabs with some brands to create these capsule, like limited edition collections that, help to make these storytelling elements, go alive in more ways. And so, yeah, that is the Clearly Collective. I appreciate you all listening to my story. We're still a work in progress. We're about a year old. I quit my corporate job last April, so we're coming up on a year. But I think it's been an amazing journey, and I just feel really grateful to UVA specifically because they've supported me both through like mentorship of just random people I've reached out to and the iLab. And yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yay, thank you. So much good information. Oh my gosh. A couple of questions came in. And so I know you showed us your $239 Adobe suite. And just wondering, somebody asked whether you're using AI at all to generate these images or.
That's a really good question. And I think that it's important to think about AI since it's becoming so ingrained in our culture and everyone's using it. What I've found is that AI can create in like inspo photos. So ones that could lead to design direction, but it doesn't make it editable. Like I don't think that AI is advanced enough for it to create the design and then me go in and edit it to make those fine tuning details that actually make it meaningful. That's where I'm at now with AI. I'm sure it's going to develop more and I hope to use it in the future because I think it can help to expedite our design process a little bit since, little details can be a bit tedious, but as of now, we don't use AI in design.
Okay. Let's see. Somebody asked, do you ever take custom design requests? I know that's tricky with production and fulfillment, et cetera, but are you able to?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
Oh,
we
great.
we absolutely take design requests. There are certain requirements we do have. So we usually don't do anything under 75 units and we have a timeline for about 4 to 5 months. And we are booked out until like for the next few months. But if you are interested, I would just go to our website. There's a custom request form and you can just type in what you're thinking. We can get you back a quote. We can get you back a timeline to see if this is a good fit.
Okay, great. That's good to know. We'll link to Olivia's website at the end of the program. Let's see. So do you want to give us any more just teasers about who you're hoping to link with or collaborate with in Europe? I know you're going to be in Milan. Do you have any places in Italy specifically or?
So the architecture style is really what I go for more than the specific place because
Mhm.
at this point, I think like storytelling is the most important. And if there was, for example, like the Peninsula Hotel is amazing, but in New York, or even the Peninsula is pretty in New York. I'm trying to think of like a standard hotel that's a luxury chain, but really doesn't have a lot of character to it because it's just like kind of a block. Even if it were to be a luxury chain, I would not be interested. I'd be interested in the B&B that maybe has only 30 rooms that's in a castle in the hills of like Umbria. So when I'm looking for collabs next, it's going to be anywhere in Europe or, outside of Europe that has a unique history, story, and architecture to it. That's what I'm looking for. So.
Okay, great. Let's see. Somebody's asking right now, where can we buy a Tundi scarf? This is the Tundi scarf,
That is
the rotunda scarf, which is so great. And we will
yeah.
link to the website.
Thank you. Yeah. So the Tendy scarf available on the website. And then I also wanted to plug that if you are going to Reunion, we are we're selling the pocket squares at checkout. So it's like a limited thing with the UVA Reunion community committee just to help with them. So if you're going to Reunion, that'll be there too.
Awesome. Is there a Wahoo discount?
There's not right now, but what I would do is we do have sales occasionally, and they're usually like if you follow me on Instagram, we'll put the code up on the story, or if you get on our email list, we'll put the code on that.
Okay, great. This sounds like a question I asked you in our run through last week because I went to a women's college. I love how you determine your schools. Have you considered women's colleges? I think there would be a huge market.
Yeah, well, we do have a Seven Sisters scarf, and so it does have a
Okay.
few of the women's colleges just because we put them all together. Like I said before, I try to go with the schools that have the largest like alumni network so that I know that there's interest. And so it's always based off of that.
Okay, great. Let's see. Are the scarves available only in one size? Would you consider larger or smaller formats just as you branch out your different offerings?
Yeah, I think I liked UVA specifically will always have more options because it's my favorite, like it's, my alma mater. So I would just say like stay tuned. Sometimes we'll offer pocket squares, sometimes we'll offer different sizes. We've tested out like a 27.5-inch scarf, which is like kind of a medium at one point, and sometimes we'll just kind of throw those in just to test the market. And yeah, so
Okay, let's see. Somebody's commenting about the pocket scarf. I just registered for unions today. She didn't see the option for the pocket square. She doesn't know if that matters. She is a woman. She wondered if it might only pop up for a man. She said, I already have the scarf and she's super excited for your future.
Oh, great. Thank you. Well, we're working on some technical issues. So we're talking tomorrow. So that'll get fixed soon. Yes.
Okay, great. Somebody else, pocket squares sound like a great option for men. Any plans to offer those regularly? It's not my reunion year, but I'd love to get one.
Stay tuned. We have to just kind of figure out a few other things first. One of the things from a business perspective is like the more designs we have, the more we have to invest in inventory. And so
Mhm.
like if we have, let's just say like $100 to invest in inventory and we just added a new design,
Mhm.
then we can't like pay for as many, if that makes sense, because it gets diluted. And so since we already have a UVA scarf, we don't do the pocket squares often, but if I ever do it, it's usually around the holidays so that people can get that. So stay tuned around the holidays. We'll bring it back. And we also have a blue version of the Tundy scarf that I bring back around the holidays too. But yeah, UVA will always get special treatment, and it's usually like around like a holiday or something like that.
That's awesome. So I know we have a number of architecture school alums and people in the administration there watching. So do you want to give a shout out to anybody in particular who helped you in the A school and have you stayed in touch with them?
Um, you know, I remember there was a guest lecturer that came to my review, and I don't remember his name, but he saw my doodles and it was in my sketchbook actually during a review, and it wasn't even meant to be up on the board or up, on the where you present. And he pointed to my sketchbook and he's like, "Wait, this is so cool. You should do something with this." And I remember that so vividly because they had originally just been doodles. And I didn't really think that they were anything big. And I haven't stopped doing it since he said that.
Mm.
So the guest lecturer was an incredible impact on my life. And I would just say everyone at the Darden program was incredibly impactful as well. They just really, really supported me in every single way and took what was kind of, I mean, it was definitely above an art craft hobby. They took that and really turned it into like, how do you monetize art and creativity, which was invaluable. So I really, everyone at the iLab program was amazing.
And do they, I know they help you get off the ground. Do they also help you just scale the business, kind of look down the road, or how are you figuring out how to scale this now?
So I've it's primarily education based. There's a very small but incredibly helpful because it goes right back into the business grant that they gave us. And I don't mean to say incredibly small. It's not incredibly small.
Mhm.
But it was incredibly helpful in us, figuring out the next phase. What I'd say is that the program ended, but the doors are always open. So anytime I
Mhm.
need help and I'm saying, okay, well, here's where I'm at, and like this is the issue I'm having, like 3PL. I always know there's an open door with somebody that I can go back to. And I feel like they've created an incredible community that allows that. So yeah.
That's great. That's great. Let's see, do you see this question about the historic presidential homes? Have you considered
Oh,
those?
yeah, yeah. So the Soul Grave Club, that was like a private order for a social club. When it comes to historic presidential homes, I mean, it really just depends who's interested, and like, is there a big enough order that they would want to make that? So yeah.
Great. And now we have a couple of wedding. Have you had any commissions for wedding favors?
Yes.
And then this networking with event planners as well.
Yeah, the event planner network has been a really interesting one. What I've found is like typically we're out of price range just because the minimums are so high. And but like I recently got into the world of like luxury event planning, and that's crazy. We haven't we've done like a few intro calls that are for weddings in 2026. Those are really fun. I mean, and it's so much about storytelling, about the venue, about the love story, and it's absolutely something we do. It doesn't happen as much just because the minimums are so high, and I don't feel like everyone like wants to do that for everybody, but when it does, I love it. It's really fun talking with the bride and groom about like how they got married and stuff.
That's great. This may be a relative asking a question, Alicia Cleary. Yeah, how did you develop fashion skills as an architecture student?
That's my mom. Thanks,
Your
mom.
mom.
Uh, so I think that's a great question, Mom. I really fell into fashion, and I'd say I didn't even really consider myself to be a fashion designer for a long time. I thought that I was a graphic designer that knew how to put together textiles. And then, the more I do this, the more I realize I guess I am a fashion designer because you can do so much with scarves. And also as I think about expanding surfaces, that's really what it comes to. But um I think it really just experimenting with things is how I developed it. And also learning how things are made. Understanding supply chain is incredibly helpful because once you realize how things are made, it's somewhat easy. It's just you have to have the funds to create samples, which is always the most expensive part of the process.
How about, do you ever have any urge to draw a house or just like design a house?
Oh, I think about designing my dream house all the time. I have a whole Pinterest board of like the way that I want my like dream home to be, and a lot of it has a lot of like handmade elements and painted elements and textiles, and so I think about that a lot. But that's a little bit away right now.
Um, this is asking about your freshman scholarship.
Oh, wow, mom's plugging me big time right now. All right. Yeah, actually, I got the Champagne scholarship my first year of UVA architecture school, where they'll actually fund your summer if you have an unpaid internship in New York City. And the head of the guy who funds it is the head of store design for Chanel. And he is so great. He's amazing. And we would go out to lunch occasionally, and he would just like kind of talk to me about store design and stuff like that. It was an amazing program, but I actually interned for a marketing firm that summer. And I worked directly with a fashion company. And so I learned a little bit about the marketing side of things with that. And it was made possible by the scholarship that I got.
I mean, there's just so many neat pieces that have come together for this. It's super cool. One person who wrote in is thinking about applying to the architecture school, and would you recommend that? There's another parent of a first year and a third year on also interested in just the architecture school.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I think that what I loved the most about the architecture school was that it was an incredible balance of, you know, it's a good balance of not studying in the library for hours, which I felt like a lot of my peers were doing, and I got to work with my hands a lot more, but also you still have a rounded education, so you're not just like an art student. And I think that that was really helpful for me. And I personally knew that I never wanted to be an architect, but I was incredibly creative, and the way that like, I ended up doing the design thinking degree, and it is mostly architecture that you're doing, but there's a little bit of diversion when you do the design thinking degree. The structure in which they teach you to take an abstract idea in your head that only makes sense to you to something that is understandable on paper is an invaluable skill. And I feel like I use that same structure today to take, a concept of a super corporate brand that's very rigid, and I take, someone who's perhaps like not super creative, and I can lead them through this journey in the same way that they taught me in architecture school how to take it from an idea to an actual thing, but with scarves. It's very similar, the way that I conduct my work. So it's an amazing program. I highly recommend it. I really, really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. Great. Let's see. This is just a question. Are the scarves hand rolled?
They are.
Nice.
And I didn't know what hand rolled was at first. And I remember I was at like a trunk show, and someone came over and touched the edge of my scarf, and she's like, they're not hand rolled. And I didn't understand what that meant. And then I did a little bit more research, and I realized you don't want to sew the edges. It's not luxury. And then I got them rolled. So yeah.
Right. Nice. Um, let's see. We just had a note from somebody who is representing Montpelier and wants to talk. So
Oh,
that's
great. Let's
exciting.
talk.
Yes.
Awesome.
TBD after this. Yeah. So that'll be good. Let's see. So most of these, so I loved the part when you showed how you do these kind of, you send your idea video, you create, this is what we would do if you worked with us. So is that how you are getting a lot of your business now, or people I'm sure now are hearing about you and coming to you? Is it just overwhelming?
Yeah, sometimes a little
Okay.
bit. It's good though. I feel really lucky to be in the position I am. I think the reason why is just the power of social media and the ability to have reach all over the
Mhm.
world. And actually it was really interesting. I'm in Charleston now. I was in a coffee shop, and I just moved here actually like a week ago, and this girl came up to me, and she told me that she just graduated the Virginia Tech architecture program, and she was really interested. And I use that as an example because there's people just like all over the world that randomly can see this stuff because social
Mhm.
media has that reach, and because of that really helps with lead generation. So it's good. It's yeah, there's a lot going on.
That's great. So you are coming back to your 5-year
Yes,
reunion,
I am.
yes? Oh,
I am.
good.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yes.
Good. Let's see. I don't think we have any more questions. Um, let's see how I think we've answered. How did you finance your business venture? We know the Adobe, and then so interesting that people would pay upfront, basically.
Yeah.
Um,
Friends. They trusted me.
Brands.
So yeah, that's how you got to start. You got to always start with friends. Yeah.
Exactly. That's awesome. So did you
Mhm.
have anything else you wanted to? Oh, here we go. One more question. Are you hiring free interns? I'm
Um,
at Darden, would love to help with operations. This is
yeah,
great.
why don't you email us? I'll ask my sister if she needs some help, and we'll go from there.
That's awesome. Good. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Olivia. I feel like this is going to be one of those we knew you when. And it's
You.
super exciting to see just how this started and where it's going. And best of luck to you in Milan.
Thank you.
And we'll keep an eye out for you. Thank you everyone for attending. We have our closing slide. We'll give just the Instagram and also the website where you can hop on and see which are available, or if you have ideas and would like to throw in some suggestions. Thanks again. I appreciate it. You're getting a nice, wonderfully inspirational success story
Thank
note
you.
in the question. So thank you so much.
Thank
Best
you.
of
Thank you.
luck. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.